What's up guys, welcome back to more Reddit stories about entitled people, crazy people, and everything in between. So let's begin. Barbara finally gets what she gives, does it to herself. We'll call the couple Stu and Barbara. Barbara is a witch, literally. She took up some religion where they call themselves witches. Barbara love-bombed a very smart but socially inept friend of mine named Stuart. Stu is super quiet, super smart, actual rocket scientist, and was smitten with Barbara. Barbara was smitten with Stu's house, money, etc. No amount of telling Stu would stop him. He was under Barbara's spell. She moved in with him, took over, cut off all his friends, and gaslighted the crap out of him. 4 years later, he sees the light. Time for Barbara to move out. She flat refuses. Stu has a very valuable china collection, inherited from his great-grandparents. Barbara has always wanted that china, since the royal family somewhere has a set like it. And Stu had to lock it up in a valuables safe, since she breaks things when she doesn't get her way. When her eviction notice time was up, we helped pack up Barbara's crap, stack the boxes in the garage and her parking place, and change the house locks. Stuck around to see Barbara finally get the boot. The evil genius in our bunch got a bright idea. We took a bunch of warning, extremely fragile stickers from my shop, stuck them on the boxes and wrote Stu's China on the boxes with big black Sharpie. Barbara comes out with her sister and another harpy witch friend, sees the boxes in the garage and blows up. Argument in the yard. She can't get in the house. She starts losing it. When she gets in her SUV, she sees the boxes again, backs up and rams them so hard it broke through the wall into a storage room behind. She's not done. She backs up and rams the boxes and wall again. We are already on the phone with police, and it's caught on home surveillance camera. She rammed her own stuff. The cops weren't amused, wanted to know why the boxes were mislabeled. We said we reused the boxes from Stu's original move-in since they were handy. One officer wasn't amused with Barbara, stayed to fill out reports, and actually laughed once it was all over. Barbara has since attempted to break into the garage or house 3 times in the past 2 weeks. Police have camera footage. What's left of her crap was delivered to a storage locker that 1 month rent was paid on. And no, we didn't rebox any of it. It's in the same state she left it in the garage. Drywall, wood splinters, insulation, and all. Stu is spending a lot of time with us catching up, trading insane X stories, smiling more than I've seen since he met Barbara. A neighbor hit my car and lied about it, so I ruined 300 pounds of meat while he was on vacation. This happened about 5 or 6 years ago. For some context, my neighbor, we'll call him Chester, is your stereotypical weekend outdoorsman type. He drives a Jeep, which will be important later, and usually spends his weekends either hunting, fishing, or prepping for when the bombs drop. I tried to explain to him once that we were within the fallout range of a major city, so if it got hit, we'd be screwed either way, but whatever. Everyone needs a hobby, and some people's is collecting canned peaches. 2 weeks before the revenge, I came outside to see my car had a broken window on the passenger side, and that part of the frame was dented just above the door handle. I can tell immediately from the size and shape of the dent exactly what it was from. As I said, my neighbor Chester drives a Jeep, and mounted on his front grille is a cable winch he uses for pulling stumps and whatnot. It juts out almost 1.5 feet in front of the bumper and is made of solid metal. Anyone with a picture of the winch and the shape of the dent in my car could CSI that crap just from eyeballing it. The dent is almost identically shaped and situated at the same height the winch was mounted. On top of that, Chester lives directly across the street from me, and he likes to back into his driveway. Conveniently enough, my car is always parked on the street, so he has ample opportunities to hit it. I asked Chester about it, and without saying anything, he shook his head while biting his lip, like some clueless cartoon character. I then asked if anyone who borrowed his car might have done it, because the winch itself was pretty scratched up, almost like he's been ramming it into things all over town. Again, Chester silently shakes his head and then tries to tell me it was probably teenagers. No exposition, mind you, he just blamed it on teenagers. I was fuming, but kept my composure and went home to call the police and my insurance company to report it. I managed to get a competent police officer, who told me point blank that it was clear what happened. But without a witness, it would be pointless to try and prove it. The insurance agent was equally certain of Chester's guilt, but ended up recommending I pay out of pocket for the repair. Since I was parking on the street, it was a factor the insurance company might use against me if I filed the claim. When it came time for them to recalculate and adjust my monthly rate, I could see a significant increase. A few hundred out of pocket right now could save me several hundred a year going forward, if my rate was increased due to my own negligence, which is what the claim would unfortunately be categorized as. Raw deal for sure, but at least he was honest with me. Fast forward to 2 weeks later, Chester and his family are going up north to rough it in nature for a week. And despite my cold attitude towards him in recent days, he asked me to keep an eye on his house while he was gone, since I'm the only person in the neighborhood that he trusts, apparently. I agreed to do it, not because I had any type of revenge in mind, but because he gifted me a large case of beer for my service. His one request was that I call him if we had any extreme weather because he'd need me to check on something. 2 nights after he left, we had a nasty storm, wind, hail, and even a few rolling blackouts. The next morning I called Chester to ask what he needed me to check on, but he didn't answer. Knowing Chester, he'd probably set up camp in some rural part of America with no damn cell phone service, even though he asked me to call him if this happened. After a few failed attempts, I went over to his house to inspect for any potential issues that might have arisen from the weather. I figured he was probably worried about his garage flooding, since his yard was frequently a moat after heavy rain. I went into the garage and there was no flooding, but something caught my eye immediately. 4 large freezer chests lined up side by side, taking up a huge chunk of the wall. I peeked inside one and immediately realized what Chester was worried about. All 4 of them were packed from floor to lid with meat. Some of it was still in packages from the grocery store and some of it was wrapped in butcher paper. Likely game picked up from Chester's hunting exploits. But on top of one of the freezers was something else that seemed out of place. It was a red Solo cup full of frozen water, with a penny sitting on top. I thought that was weird and dismissed it immediately, but curiosity got the better of me later that day when I got home. I decided to Google it, and what I learned instantly clicked as a way to get the ultimate revenge on Chester for hitting my car and sticking me with the repair bill. There's an old life hack that people used to use when they went on vacation. You freeze a cup of water, then place a penny on top of it and stick it in your freezer. If your power goes out, the water will eventually melt, and the penny will fall to the bottom of the cup. If you return home and the penny is at the bottom of the cup, your freezer was off for an extended period of time, and now everything in it has potentially defrosted and become unfit for consumption. I immediately got up and ran back to Chester's garage to scope out the legitimacy of my nefarious deed. As luck would have it, Chester's circuit breaker was hidden behind a tool shelf, not directly visible to the naked eye. Who would put a shelf in front of a circuit breaker? Chester, of course. So I promptly took the cup out of the freezer and sat it on Chester's porch to let it get a little sun. After a few hours, the ice had melted enough that the penny slipped right to the bottom of the cup. I then put the cup back in the freezer, being very careful to position it exactly where it was when I took it out, before moving on to the last phase of my insidious plan. I started blowing up Chester's phone with calls and frantic text messages. "Chester, where is your circuit breaker? I can't find it and your power is off. Get back to me ASAP." I did this countless times over the next 2 days, before I finally got a call back from Chester. He told me immediately where to go in his garage to find the circuit breaker, which, of course, I already knew, thanks to my prior detective work. I sat the phone down and flipped the circuit breaker twice, once to turn it off and then a second time to turn it back on, giving it just enough time to mess with the digital clocks on his appliances. And with that, my revenge was complete. All that was left was for Chester to come back home, which took another 2 days. When Chester got back home, I was nervous, but eager to see if my charade had worked. The next day I got a knock on my door. It was Chester. He asked me if I wanted some meat to give to my dogs. Apparently, the power had been off for too long, and all the meat in his freezers had thawed out while he was gone, so he was throwing it out. I asked him how much he had, and he said it was probably somewhere close to 300 pounds. He didn't want to waste it all, so he asked if I wanted to give some to my dogs. I graciously helped myself to roughly half a freezer's worth of meat, some of which I stored in my own fridge, and the rest Chester was nice enough to offer to hold on to in his freezer until I needed it. The kicker is that Chester had no idea the meat never actually defrosted, and was still perfectly good. That night I helped myself and my dogs to a couple of nice steaks, courtesy of old Chester himself, who was still busy walking the neighborhood unloading the tainted meat on anyone who had a cat or dog that might want it. It was at least 4 or 5 months before me and my dogs went through all the meat Chester had given us. I don't know if I made all my money back for the repairs on my car, but I didn't have to buy any meat for many a fortnight. Entitled parent tries to take my wheelchair for entitled kid at Disney World thinking it was rented. Gets charged. Okay, for a bit of a backstory, I have a disability to where I can walk, but not far, without excruciating pain. I went to Disney with my family over the summer. It was very fun until halfway through our trip. My family and I were on vacation in Disney World for a week. We were having a wonderful time until Wednesday. We were at Animal Kingdom and in line for Kali River Rapids. Enter entitled parent, entitled kid, and poor dad. All of a sudden, entitled parent starts talking nonsense. "Hi, can my son please borrow your wheelchair to sit in?" And my mom says, "I'm sorry, our daughter has to sit there. She can't walk well and it will hurt her to walk." "It's not that far, she can walk it off." "If she can, then so can your son." Entitled parent isn't having it. "Just give me the damn wheelchair." My sisters and I couldn't believe the utter foolishness this lady had in her. "This is a theme park for kids. Don't swear in front of children," said my dad. "I will report you to the wheelchair rental service. They will take yours away." "Go ahead. This is our wheelchair. They can't take it." Entitled parent is very upset, but doesn't speak for the duration of the wait and ride. We thought this was the end of it, but no, it gets worse. My family decided to split up because my mom and I loved roller coasters, and I haven't ridden Expedition Everest in years. We get in line and it turns out entitled parent and entitled kid were following us. Poor dad wasn't there, so I assumed he didn't want to ride the coaster. I'd say that entitled kid was maybe 6 or 7, so I didn't know if it would be okay to let him ride, because I would have been terrified to ride the ride at that age. Here's round 2 of this idiotic lady's rampage. "Hi again, is it okay if we go ahead of you? Poor dad is waiting for us and we have a fast pass soon." My mom says, "I'm sorry, but from the way you treated us earlier, I couldn't care less if you miss your fast pass." "I need to sit in the wheelchair, my legs hurt," said entitled kid. "Let us through now or give me the wheelchair," said entitled parent. "Look, lady, I have to sit in this chair. He can't just sit in it with me in it." Entitled parent then pushes me out of the wheelchair and shoves her kid in it. She then tries to leave, but other guests don't allow her, as they're watching this unfold. Just then a security guard comes and assesses the situation because he heard the commotion. "What is going on here?" said the security guard. "These 2 people are trying to steal my wheelchair," said the entitled parent. "Is this true?" he said to my mom. "No, this woman stole our wheelchair that my daughter needs." Bystanders start telling security guard what happened. "They're lying. I rented this wheelchair out for my son who is disabled," said entitled parent. That was the sentence that caused her to ruin her vacation. "Okay, I'll need you to stay here until the police arrive," said security guard. Entitled parent, thinking she'd won, says, "What? But I did nothing wrong." Eventually the cops arrived and asked if we wanted to press charges. We said yes. After that, my mom and I enjoyed the ride and told the rest of the family what happened. They were dumbfounded and we still laugh to this day. Teacher wouldn't let me use the restroom. I got her suspended. The title explains it. To preface, I have Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. This qualifies me as disabled, and so starting when I first got sick in high school, I was required accommodations by state law. Being disabled was hard and pretty complicated, since after being diagnosed with IBD, I started getting various other health issues, ranging from kidney issues to neurological issues to fibromyalgia. My school was very reasonable, and even after missing 3 months when I was first diagnosed, I still got all my credits. The following year, I was doing alright. Then second semester, one of my teachers left, and the new one was a complete monster. She refused to teach with the textbook and used Wikipedia instead. Wouldn't give us any tests or practice for the AP exam we were due to take. I was very frustrated and felt unprepared. She absolutely loathed me, since I had a little pink pass that allowed me to take my meds in class, go to the nurse as needed, and have unlimited restroom breaks. She thought I was a disruption. I would do my best to wait until she was done talking unless I was in too much pain, but she would always roll her eyes and groan at me. One day I had just gotten in from a doctor's appointment and rushed into her class. I asked to go to the restroom and said I'll be right back. She said no. Well, asking is just a formality. All of the teachers get emails about the disabled students and know about their accommodations. So I told her, I need to go to the restroom. I'm going. As I left, she groaned something about me always wasting class time and faking it. I picked up my stuff and took it with me. I went to the restroom. Then I went downstairs to my dean's office. I signed in, and when he came out to get me, I told him about her attitude and how she refused to let me use my accommodations, so I came here. I simply told him that they should let her know that she's required to let me leave the class for a reason, and I have medical paperwork to back that up. He apologized profusely and called the teacher. He told her that he was sending a substitute to her room and he wanted to speak with her. Then he called for a substitute teacher on his walkie-talkie. She arrived at his office looking very displeased, to say the least. He sent me out of the room and I waited in the lobby for, I think, 20 minutes. Once she left, he had her stop at the desk to fill out some paperwork. He brought me back into the office to fill out paperwork too about what had happened. A few other students who heard what had happened came in as witnesses, and after that she was gone for 3 weeks. To my knowledge, she was suspended because she opened them up to a potential lawsuit. Blatantly denying a disabled student their accommodations is against the law here, and the school didn't tolerate it one bit. I will admit I do feel a little bad, but I don't take any crap when it comes to my body and my diseases. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, I appreciate it. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more. So have an awesome day, I'll see you all next time.